Learning Zila Nishmas Ahuva by Zakim Masechtas Quinim Perik Aleph Mishnah Aleph. So Mishnah Aleph has three Hagdamas to the Masechta, but for the first Hagdama, let's give a small Hagdama from the Mishnahs we learned in Zvachim. Perik Vav Mishnah Daled, the chilik between a Chatas Ha'oif and a Oilas Ha'oif. A Chatas Ha'oif is done Lamata. The Malika is also done Lamata, but the Malika Be'etzav any place is kosher. The Hazah is done on the Kira Tachtin, Lamata Mechut HaSikra, on the lower half of the Mizbeach, followed by Mitzui Al HaYisoid. So it's all done Lamata, and the Oilas Ha'oif is the opposite, it's done Lamaila, there's no Hazah over there, but the Mitzui is done Beroish HaMizbeach, and the Malika also is learned out that has to be done Beroish HaMizbeach. So the Mefarish over here has a siman, Ayin, that Oilas Ha'oif is Lamala, that's the Ayin, and Tes, Chatas Ha'oif is Lamata, that's the Tes. And by a behema, it's the opposite. Chatas behema is lamaila, and oilas behema is lamata. So the Mishnah starts off, Chatas ha'oif nasis lamata, like we just said, and the Chatas behema is lamaila. Oilas ha'oif nasis lamaila, va'oilas behema lamata. Mishna b'zeh Puzzle. So our Mishnah says that if you do the wrong thing, it puzzles, the carbon is puzzle. This was also learned in Zvachim in the first Mishnah in the 7th parak. The mitzui of a chatas ha'oif, which we said is done ali yisoid, if you did it lamaila, then it will be telling in the machlekes tanoim whether mitzui is ma'akiv. That's what the mefarish over here says. So that's hakdama number 1 to the Masechta. Hakdama number 2 is Seder Kinim Kachu. A Kinim is a set of 2 birds. Hachayva, when you're bringing Kinim as a chayva, for example, a zav or a zava, or any one of the carbon oilers v'yored, the dalas brings 2 birds. And the Yeledis also, whose dal, whose poor also brings 2 birds. So those 2 birds are echad chatas ve'echas oil. One of the birds is a oilas oif, one of the birds is a chatas oif. So that's haktama number 2. However, by Nadarim and Nadavis, kul and oilas. If someone says, I'm giving a nest to hekdesh, which is 2 birds, he's bringing them as karbonas, then they would both be oilas oiv, because you can't bring a chatas as a neder and nedava. The third akdama is the chilik between neder and nedava, which is also Mishnah Megillah, Paragal of Mishnah Vav, that ezu neder ho'imer rei alai oilav, ezu nedava ho'imer rei zu oilav. Ma be nedarim and nedavas, el shenadarim, when you said harei alai, it's on me, so then meisoy nignavu chayam b'achrayis, you're taking on me the responsibility that even if the animal dies or gets stolen, I have to find a replacement. However, by nedavas, we said harei zu, I'm bringing this animal as a carbon, or this oif as a carbon, so then there's no achrayis. If it's meisoy nignavu, this one I'm going to bring, but now that it died or it's stolen, ein chayam b'achrayus, so then you're not chayiv in the achrayis. Mishnah Beis. So now we could start the Masechta, confusing Masechta, which is about a lot of birds getting confused and mixed up with each other. So the first part of Mishnah Beis is Chatas shenis arva ba'oila va'oila bechatas. If the 2 birds got mixed up with each other, and we already said in Mishnah Aleph that if you would do a chatas ha'oif lamata, or you would do an oilas ha'oif, if you did a chatas ha'oif l'mayla, or you did a oilas ha'oif l'mata in the wrong place, then it would be puzzle. So now that they got mixed up, I can't do it in either place. So therefore, the animal is no longer fit. Afilu echa beriba, even if it's one chatas with 10,000 oilas, or one oila with 10,000 chatois, yemusa kulam, all of them have to die. And the Rav speaks out, v'loi batli beruba de balei ar chashive v'loi batli, which was a discussion in a Gemara in Zvachim on Daf Ayin Gimel Mebeiz. The Gemara over there asked by behemoths getting mixed up with Levatel Biruba. Ayin Sham. The second part of the Mishnah now begins connected to Mishnah Gimel and Daled through the end of the parak. So what's the case over here? Chatas shenis arva b'choyve. If someone had an oilas, a chatas ha'oif, and it got mixed up with 2 sets of chayvas. But in the chayvas, those 4 birds, you didn't specify which one is a oila and which one's a chatas. But we know 2 of them are going to be oilas and 2 of them are going to be chatois. So altogether I have 5 birds. I have one that's vadai chatas, and then I have the other 4 birds. 2 of them are chatois and 2 of them are oilos, and I don't know which one is which. So now the question is, how many birds can I bring, and what could I bring them for? So I vadai can't bring any as an oila because one of them is vadai chatas mixed in. So I can't bring any of them as an oila. How many of them could I bring as a chatas? So the Mishnah says, "Ein kosher ela kaminyan chatoi shebechayva." You have to look at the worst case scenario, meaning you have to assume that the birds that I'm taking are all going to be from the chayva, of which we said 2 birds are chatas and 2 birds of oila. So if I take 2 birds and I bring them as a chatas, I'm for sure good, because in the chayva, in the 2 sets of chayva, two sets, 2 of them are chatos. I'm for sure good. But if I bring 3 birds, I can't bring them as a chatas, because maybe all these 3 birds are from the 2 sets of the chayva, and in which case 2 of them are supposed to be a chatas, but 2 of them are supposed to be an oila. So this is what the whole Masechta is really about, is that you have to look at the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that the birds I'm taking are from the chayva, and therefore you have to assume that, and you can only bring, therefore, only 2 birds as a chatas. If I had a vadai oila mixed up with 2 sets of chayva, so again, I can't bring it as a chatas because one of them is for sure an oila. So I can only bring it as oilas. How many birds can I bring as oilas? Only 2, because you have to look at the worst case scenario that the birds are coming from the chayva sets, and if they're coming from the chayva sets, only 2 are oilas. The Mishnah ends off, Bein sha'chayva meruba v'anedava mu'etes, Bein sha'anedava meruba v'achayva mu'etes, Bein she'shteim shavis. This is always going to be the klal, that you have to look at it the worst case scenario, meaning you have to look at the birds that I'm taking now are maybe from the chayva sets, and in each chayva set, one is a oila, one is a chatas. So depending on how many chayva sets there were, that's how many birds you're going to be allowed to bring. Half of them you could bring as a chatas if there was a vadai chatas mixed in there, or oila if a vadai oila was mixed in there.